At a klau in general, at a Farbrengen, a real Farbrengen, not talking about the Rebbe's Farbrengen. Farbrengen, Chassidim, there weren't too many formalities. The whole idea of formalities is a contradiction to a Farbrengen. So Farbrengen, whatever someone felt at the Farbrengen, they said, hopefully it wasn't foolish. But if you have something to say or you want to ask something, be my guest. It's not a show here. It's not a, this isn't a lecture. If you came for a lecture, go back home. But if Farbrengen, Chassidim sit together, and meret, you talk a little bit. And if you need a little shamayim to help you, say l'chaim. Chaim l'chaim. One of the things that Mittler Rebbe, the Dovber, that he spoke a lot about was also the idea of avodas hatfilah. What does avodas hatfilah mean? What's avodas hatfilah mean? What am I asking? What does avodas hatfilah mean? Avodas hatfilah means to daven. To daven. Avodas halev. I'll tell you a story. It's not a story. It's Farbrengen's, again, it's stories. It's not story time. You want story time, go elsewhere. A vart, an akuda, point. There was a chassid, Lubavitcher chassid. He came from Russia. He learned in Lubavitch. His name was Rabbi Avram Mayor, Avram Drizin. There's a Lubavitch family, the Drizin family. So he would come, our mashpia in Maristan was Reb Melech Tzvi over Sholem, and he would bring him once a year to come Farbrengen. Just parenthetically, I want you, again, you need a background. If you have a background, you can understand better Vort. When a mashpia who's not a Russian mashpia, he wants the boys, he wants the talmidim, he wants the students to really see the real McCoy. He brings the real McCoy. Real McCoy, the Rosh Hashanah, real McCoy means. The real thing. The Emes Hazach. Rabbi Avram Mayor learned in Lubavitch. In 1913 or 14, he came to Lubavitch. And he learned 7-8 years in Lubavitch. And then he was one of the Frierdiker Rebbe's Talmidim who had Mesiras Nefesh. A lot to say about this chassid. So our mashpia, Reb Melech Tzvi, who was born in Eretz Yisrael, and he was a very special Yid. I'm sure he knew Shas, and I'm telling you, this man knew Shas, he knew every book of Chassidus, he knew Zohar, anything that was printed, he would learn with us. Sometimes in his room, he'd call you in, and he said, Len der Stickel sehr Geschmack. He was a gifted person, a gifted mind. Came from a Galiciana home. Father was above a chassid. My father remembers when he came to yeshiva. My father's older, was eingezunt. He remembers when Melech came to the yeshiva to Reb Shlomo Chaim to Lud. Anyway, so he brings for us, here we are, we're Yankee Doodles. I learned at this yeshiva here on Ocean Parkway. This is my alma mater, this Lubavitch yeshiva. The 1970s, I remember when the yeshiva opened. How do I remember? You want to hear a cute story? A story within a story? The first Friday the yeshiva opened, I was, I believe, in fourth grade. Yeah, fourth grade. And the buses are waiting. And I had this kind of, not fear, but, maybe the bus is going to leave. And we lived at the time, I think still, we lived in East Flatbush. I'm not sure. We used to live in East Flatbush, then moved to Borough Park. So I ran out. I ran down the steps from my class everything's brand new building. It's a whole story about how the building got built, who gave the money, there's a lot of pratim, but people don't know. Read the books and you'll see everything. Everything's in the books. All the history's in the books. All the juicy stuff is in the footnotes. Not in the text, in the footnotes. So if you're a real reader, you read the footnotes. Anyway, so I came running down, and as I'm walking down those same steps that are there today, those steps, I'm going down, running towards the bus. I'm in 4th grade. And I fall flat on the wet cement. They had just built the steps. And it looked real, and I didn't know. And I had an imprint of my body. And when I came home, my father let me have it. It was a window. And that was my recollection of Ocean Parkway, the yeshiva. But we had very good learning. Anyway.
You still recall it, that cement.
I remember too, like now, like it's yesterday. You know, you're a young boy and you have such a thing, you know. And your father, when you come home, get to the chelik, he really lets you have it. What are you, out of your mind? You don't know that. Anyway, the kid said, so the Melech brought to Morristown a chassid from Lubavitch to Farbrengen with us, American boys who are learning and growing up with the Rebbe, but still, you know, the Russian chassidim from, you know, it's different, like I told you in the previous talk. It's a different world. And Rebbe Levin is probably from the last remaining Mohegans, as we say. It's a breed that doesn't exist anymore. Him, Shalom, there's 20, 30, that's it. That's the way it is, you know. Lubavitch moved away from Russia, came to Eretz Yisrael, came to Canada, came to America. So just, you know, mixos shvochav b'fonav. You guys don't know what you got over here, so use it up. I'm very serious. I'm not saying it to make him great. I'm just saying you have a chassid from Russia that's still healthy, Baruch Hashem, for many years. The kop arbet, and he's fresh. Squeeze him, use him, find out. He doesn't like to talk a lot about himself. Russian chassidim hate to talk about themselves. It's the worst crime. The worst crime is you talk about yourself. And they're right, it is. But us Americans, you know, that's the way it is. You know, you like to push yourself, you know. That's... Anyway. I don't understand what you're saying if you're saying it in Russian, but okay.
You're selling it good.
But that's the truth. It's the emes. Did I say anything that's not emes? It's emes. It's emes. It's mamish emes.
At least
Anyway.
we know that we don't know.
What?
At least we know what we don't know about our rabbi.
Now that you know what your job
we knew
is.
before too.
Okay. Anyway, let's get to the point. So Rabbi Avram Mayor came to the yeshiva, and if we asked him, he told us, how did he get to Lubavitch? Now again, there you need some background. What do you mean how he got? If he came from kind of a Lubavitcher home, wouldn't he go to Lubavitch yeshiva? He wouldn't go to Slobodka. The other big yeshiva at the time was Slobodka, a Litvish yeshiva. So he told us no. He wanted to go to Slobodka. He wanted to go. His father wanted him. Slobodka had a name, because if you take a look at pictures of Slobodka, everyone's dressed clean suits, sharp, ties. Mamish, the outer appearance of a Slobodka bocher was elegant. Was elegant. Came to the Lubavitch yeshiva. And Avram came to Lubavitch yeshiva. Why? He told us why. They didn't have room for him and his cousin in Slobodka. Again, he came from a Lubavitcher home, okay? He did come from a Chabad Geza home. But in those days, first of all, travel was hard, the money was hard, and if there was a good yeshiva near you, you went to that yeshiva. You have to, it's not like today, everyone, I belong to Torah Vadas, I belong to Lakewood, I belong to Lubavitch, I belong to Bells. It wasn't really that way. It wasn't. Not by most. So, if there's a good yeshiva that's closer to him and he hears good things about it, he's going to go there. But there was no room. What's the next option? Lubavitch, a new yeshiva that opened up in 1897, called Lubavitch, Chabad Lubavitch. He comes, he's 13, 14 years old, he's a teenager, comes into the yeshiva, and he sees the bocher are torn. It's like they're wearing, the dress is torn because they didn't have money. Poor, poverty, abgerissen, zerfliegt, zerhackt, we say in Yiddish. He wants to leave. Avram told us he wanted to leave. He's not going to be, he came from even though he came from his house, it looks like it was, Balabatish. Here he is with schleppers. And he's a 13, 14-year-old, he's still, what I'm saying? He doesn't feel comfortable in this environment. He wants to leave the environment. He wants to leave. All of a sudden, he sees a bocher named David Kivman. David Haradoker, they called him. And he sees that he davens every day for 3, 4, 5 hours. When everyone's finished, and everyone goes into the Beis Medrash, this bocher is still standing at the wall at his table, praying, davening. And he's davening with great kavanah, with great focus. He never saw such a thing. You daven in the morning, you finish davening, you go for breakfast, and then you go to learn Gemara. Then he sees another bocher, Hillel, from the city of Pochev. They called him Hilke Pochever. This Hilke is in a different world. He's davening for hours. You try to go over to him and tap him, he don't answer because he's not there. Where is he? He's thinking about God. He's davening to the Eibishter. After he saw this, he says, I can't leave this place. In Slobodka, they learn maybe Gemara better, maybe. But that's all they do. In Lubavitch, in addition, and this Avram told me himself, we learned 7 hours straight, he said, from 12 to 7. And he told me we didn't go to the bathroom. I used to hold myself in, not to go to the bathroom because I didn't want to disturb my 7 hours learning Gemara. You go find me a Lakewood Bacher who does that today, or a Panovich Bacher, and I'll give you $1 million. 7 hours straight.
Even
Wouldn't go. What?
Even in Lubavitch problem.
You're right. But that commitment of how did that commitment come that he learned 7 hours straight?
Let's be honest.
How did that come? That came because he started to daven. He davened to Hashem. In a way, this is, in English we say, it's like a lost art. A lost art. It's a lost art. Sadly to say, even by us. It's a lost art. But nevertheless, the Rebbe says, and I was by the Farbrengen, Rabbi Levin, I'm sure heard it also, the Rebbe says, the fact that I don't talk about Avodas HaTefillah so much doesn't mean that it's not important. It's because the Rebbe Rashab and the Rebbe Rayatz and the Mashpiyim, they already clapped and talked. I have to repeat it. It's a whatever you do. So the Rebbe once in a while, the Chav Cheshvan, the Rebbe Rashab's, Rebbe Levis, Yiras, whatever, he spoke about it. But B'derech Klal, he didn't kochzich in that. He wasn't passionate outwardly about that because. But the fact is, we're talking about the Mittler Rebbe, who's Yom HaGeula, is the Mittler Rebbe. This was at the beginning of Chabad Chassidus. Now I say beginning, even though the Alter Rebbe preceded him, of course, But nevertheless, it was just still a beginning. It was still, and you could say the Mittler Rebbe, after the Alter Rebbe made what's called Takonis Lozhne, where he said you can't just come here every Monday and Thursday. You can't just come in here. When you come to Lubavitch, to the Alter Rebbe, what are you bringing? Are you bringing something? Tefillah, Torah, Tzedakah, Avodah, Mesiras Nefesh. What are you bringing? Right? Are we givers or takers? We just take, we take, or we give. See them say, "A Rebbe Gitman, nicht man nimmt." Nimmt means to take, give means to give. What are you giving? In Lubavitch, what Avram Mayor saw is the complete, Rebbe Megitzim Ebersten, it's all about God. He says that, I'm going to stay here with the torn pants, with the schmutz, with everything else that was so poor. And he stayed. And because he stayed, he became an Avram Mayor, a Baal Mesiras Nefesh, and he raised an entire generation of Chassidim and Yiras shamayim and everything else. But it all started with Avodas HaTefillah. So now let's break it down, because everything has to be broken down in our lives. Avodas HaTefillah, the first thing is not to rush your davening. Not to rush. This idea of rushing is not good. It's unhealthy. Number two, to take a few minutes to think about a word, a sentence of what it means. And guess what? When you will do that, one day it will be this word, another day it will be this word, and so you start focusing more on your words of davening. And that for us, I think, is pretty possible and real. Other types of avodah, there are, and if you're interested, you'll talk to your local Rav, Rabbi, Mashpia, because there's a lot more, but that's a very, very beginning. And Avodas HaTefillah is, you could say, what the Mittler Rebbe wanted and created by his Chassidim. But I want to conclude this section with a story, a word that Mendel would always say that it's worth knowing, because it's a young Bacherim here. And Mendel once said like this. He says, "Was meinst du? What do you think? The Mittler Rebbe Chassidim sind gewesen, große Chassidim. They were great Chassidim. They knew a lot of Chassidus. They spoke Chassidus. They lived Chassidus. There were a few that way, absolutely. But he says most Chassidim were regular people. When the question was, Yankel get Yossel a klap. Yankel gives a jab to Yossel. And Yossel responds with a jab back. And the question was that they had amongst each other, wer geht geben dem letzten dem klap? Who is going to jab and bang the other one last? In other words, what did Mendel saying? He's saying, Rabbi Isai was saying, if you think that the Mittler Rebbe see them, all of them, the most of them were Bali Darga, get over it. They weren't. They were regular Yidden, Amcha Yidden. But their commitment to Chassidus and to a tzaddik and to a Rebbe was powerful. And that we could walk away with from Farbrengen. That, question that I'm asked, I'm sure Rebbe's been asked this question because it's a good question. What's the difference between having a Rebbe and having a Godel or a good Rav? What's the difference? Especially today, where they've made what looks like sometimes Gedolim, who are very great, into Rebbes. But they're not. They're Litvische. They don't have Rebbes. A Rebbe is a Hasidische Zach, right? Unless I'm wrong. But what's the difference? For that, we'll sing a niggin and say L'chaim, and we'll talk about that soon. L'chaim, L'chaim. L'chaim, L'chaim. Ya da da la ya 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 da 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 ya ya da ya 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 Hey, yeah, 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 yeah,